I'm Brendan Madden, your guide to exploring China. Today, you're coming with me to an overlooked but historically and economically fundamental city of China, Zhengzhou, the capital of Henan province. At first, the Chinese declared there were 4 great ancient capitals of China. Then they discovered history was more complex. They had to add a 5th, then a 6th, a 7th, and then one more, Zhengzhou. It took so long to identify this city as an important historic capital of China because it happened so long ago. And by the looks of this modern city today, it is hard to believe. But have no doubt about it, much of the heart of China beats from here.
For this episode, we have to go back in time, way back. We must worship our ancestors with the godfather of Chinese civilization. Meet the ancient residents of China's oldest known dynastic capital. Be wowed by fascinating art and artifacts casually strewn across the countryside. Tickle our taste buds with local specialties, scale a sacred peak, and enter the heart of Zen Buddhism and Kung Fu.
I'm starting this episode at what is said to be the location of the beginning of Chinese civilization, Xinjiang near Zhengzhou. It is here where Huangdi, known as the Yellow Emperor in English, established his kingdom.
As a few major religions see Adam, from Adam and Eve, as the father of man, so the Chinese see the Yellow Emperor as the father of civilization. Nowadays, thousands of Chinese living in both China and abroad come here in the spring to pay tribute to the progenitor of one of the world's great cultures. According to mythology, there were other legendary emperors, but Huangdi gets the most credit today. Many argue he really was born here, but the myth says his birth was not typical. His mother had been struck by a bolt of lightning from the stars to become pregnant. 25 months of gestation later, Huangdi arrived fully capable of speaking. He grew to become a warrior, an entourage of wild animals joining him in battle, and yet it is said the Yellow Emperor was also a man-god of peace, as well as an overall industrious fellow. China gives him credit with transforming his tribe from uncivilized nomads to farmers. He taught how to build shelters and grow grains. He invented wheeled vehicles and boats. Upon his orders, Chinese characters were created. His empress taught the art of silk weaving. He was a standout leader, a symbol of perfection. Think of him as China's greatest tall tale, a tall tale with serious cultural and political meaning. One other key tradition he is given credit for, ancestor worship, an ancient cornerstone of Chinese culture that survives today. In fact, the local community has reasserted Huangdi's role in the worship of forefathers and foremothers, which explains this new temple. Increasingly, people far and wide come to pray to the ancestor of ancestors. They can also search for their family character on walls etched with the 4,000 main Chinese surnames passed down over the centuries.
中国人都有那个炎黄子孙之称，所以就是说，炎黄帝可以象征性的说为是中国人民的一个祖先，来这里就是进行一个拜祖的活动。
Huangdi may have been a deified monarch or a humanized deity, but subsequent leaders and tribes, though mysterious in their origins and customs, are known to be quite real. One such group is the Shang, a dynasty that ruled from Zhengzhou more than 3,600 years ago.
On the eastern end of modern Zhengzhou, vague reminders of the Shang protrude from the earth. These mounds were the Shang people's ancient city wall, surrounding perhaps the first great capital of China. Few ancient structures remain above the earth due to the fact that the Shang thrived in the Yellow River's muddy floodplain. The Shang and subsequent groups built with what is termed in Chinese as hangtu, or compact mud. Other great ancient peoples in the world, such as the Greeks and Egyptians, built with stones, a more permanent material. The Hangtu structures likely were magnificent as well, but were not built to survive the violence of wars and natural elements over a few thousand years. Therefore, when it comes to the Shang, their amazing accomplishments are not what you see above ground, but beneath it. The Shang, it turns out, were obsessed with worshipping the dead. They loaded their ancestors' tombs with material objects for the afterlife. Therefore, many pieces of history have been found in construction sites and ended up in museums in downtown Zhengzhou. The Shang left plenty behind, but quantity does not always lead to clarity. Archaeologists know they were an advanced people capable of creating incredible bronze vessels, as well as porcelain. This bronze ding, or cauldron, one of the largest ever discovered, held food and was likely used for ceremonies. These smaller vessels once contained alcohol. The Shang cracked cattle bones and tortoise shells to read the future. The cracks would tell them whether it would or would not rain, whether they would be victorious or not victorious in battle, whether they should sacrifice animals, even humans. They also used the bones to communicate with their ancestors. When it came to ancestor worship, the fabled Yellow Emperor may get cultural credit, but archaeologists believe the Shang were fundamental in establishing the ancient Chinese tradition. Ancestors had to be taken seriously because they could affect events for the living. Meanwhile, beasts adorn many of the vessels, their exact species at times difficult to ascertain. Is this a rhinoceros or a deer? Is this a bat? One pattern turns up on objects repeatedly, to the point of obsession: the Taotie. Post-Shang Dynasty texts describe it as a symbol of a monster that ate human and even its own flesh. But that is not an explanation by the Shang themselves, and therefore can only be considered an unproven hypothesis. No one really knows what it means. Again, and again, and again, the unmistakable Taotie stares back at us, and always says nothing.
War and imperial politics are as old as the mud in the Yellow River Basin, and fairly early on in dynastic history, Zhengzhou dropped out of the limelight. But the area itself was always important because of its ready supply of water and agricultural potential. In later dynasties, Zhengzhou found itself sandwiched between two of China's other 8 great capitals of history, Luoyang to the east and Kaifeng to the west. All 3 of these cities established themselves near the waters of the Yellow River.
From the Shang, flash forward 2,000 years to around 495 AD, the date of the Grotto Temple northeast of Zhengzhou. The era from which these Buddhist works derive is classically referred to as one of China's periods of disunion, which might just as easily be termed a period of multiple smaller unions, one standout being called the Northern Wei Dynasty. Buddhism had made inroads into China from India, and the Northern Wei Dynasty allowed it to flourish above and beyond native belief systems like Taoism. The idea of Buddhist cave art owes itself to Indian traditions. There are a few other grottos that are much larger and more well known in China, but at this laid-back facility, you can get an intimate look at the religious art form. Generally, the style of the artwork tends to have a more native Chinese influence, as opposed to foreign influence, the further east you go. The artistic style of the Grotto Temple, being one of the farthest east, is quite Chinese. Moreover, due to the silky and soft properties of the region's lowest soil, these works provide some of the finest detail found anywhere in China. Besides images of Buddha, it is common to see the artist's benefactor depicted on the walls, but a depiction here stands out from others in China: the imperial entourage. The emperor is the key figure. His hat identifies him. His big-bellied empress approaches from another wall. Notice, too, that these caves once possessed brilliant colors. More than 1,500 years later, only traces remain. Other highlights include these delicate flying goddesses. One is a high-nosed foreigner girl. The one with a rounder face is Chinese. Then there's this two-faced, three-eyed man-woman. Its child playfully pushes his parent's face. And does this figure resemble something? Some believe it's a depiction of the Taotie, but who knows whether the Shang would agree. Flash forward another approximate 500 years when you visit the tombs in and around Gongyi City. The tombs represent one zenith of China's past, the Song dynasty. In the 10th century AD, the Song, or more specifically, the Northern Song, ruled from Kaifeng, but buried their emperors in this area. One reason being they were from Luoyang, but could only dream of comfortably ruling from there. Gongyi, east of Zhengzhou, was the closest they could get. The tomb of the fourth emperor lies in the modern city. The traditional-looking buildings are all recent remakes, but the stones and burial mound are original. The tomb of the third emperor stands in a cluster of trees. The first emperor lies in a wheat field. The Song tombs differ from those of other dynasties because they slope downward toward the actual mound. South high, north low, as the saying goes. To the south rise the sacred Song Mountains, and the Yellow River flowed to the north. It was the Song dynasty's version of feng shui. Each tomb follows the same design. The stones represent the royal court. The tamer and the elephant represent southern Asia, another location the Song wished they could control. These lions represent the emperor. The sheep, the people. That they stand next to each other signifies harmony. Foreigners respectfully attend. It is believed this gentleman is Arabic. He holds a chunk of coral as a gift. Then there are the Chinese Song officials. The men with swords are the military. The men holding tablets are the bureaucrats. The more ferocious lions are guards. The gentlemen closest to the emperor are eunuchs. In some ways, these strange statues remind you of Stonehenge or Easter Island, but the faces inspiring them made grander accomplishments to the world's development, accomplishments perhaps underrepresented by these fascinating but comparatively humble stoneworks. While Europe was just turning on the lights, it was under the Song that Chinese culture and achievement really flourished. Paper money came into wide use, as did gunpowder and even international shipping, not to mention art.
In terms of culture, the Song competed with the elite of China's dynasties and likely outdid them. Really, it had no contemporary in the world. But it never accomplished what other dynasties before it did: regional supremacy. Whether the Song were weak or their neighbors abnormally tough, the result was the emperors always had to look over their territorial shoulders as they ruled. Eventually, their enemies prevailed. You should be getting the point. Zhengzhou's history is endless. One reason so many details are known is because events have been so accurately and diligently recorded and dated using the planets, sun, stars, and moon.
The Gaocheng Observatory is the oldest, still existing ancient astrological observatory in China. The location to observe the stars has a history extending all the way back to the Zhou dynasty, an ancient tribe that replaced the Shang about 3,000 years ago. The tower you see today harks back to Kublai Khan, Genghis Khan's grandson, of the Yuan dynasty in the 13th century. It was designed by Guo Shuojing, one of China's greatest scientists and mathematicians, a gentleman in good company with great Western thinkers such as Tycho Brahe and Copernicus. Guo used various instruments to make his calculations, including the observatory itself. His observations from this 40-foot tower helped him establish the Shuoshi calendar, which accurately calculated a solar year to last 365 days. 300 years later, Pope Gregory XIII's Gregorian calendar came to the same conclusion.
The Chinese don't call China China. They call it Zhongguo, which translates to the Middle Kingdom. And if you were to be driving into Zhengzhou from any direction, a fitting sign would say, "Welcome to the Middle."
Today, Zhengzhou is the epicenter for rail transport in China. If you're going from the north, Beijing, to the south, Hong Kong, you pass Zhengzhou. If you are going from the west, Xi'an, to the east, Shanghai, you pass Zhengzhou. Meanwhile, industry in the city is flourishing. As with many cities in China, it seems almost all corners of Zhengzhou are modernizing with improved transportation, high-rises, even international universities. Yet, the city wants to maintain a grip on its local history and culture, else it might be forgotten in the rush of economic progress. Porcelain is one area where the past and present become harmonious. Just as porcelain was produced by the Shang many centuries ago, local artists are seeing how they can push the boundaries of the skill today. Visitors are welcome to see the art of Li Mei Hua at her studio or at Zhengzhou University.
Zhengzhou isn't slowing down. Growing at more than 5% a year, it is the most populous city in the most populous province in China. With so many skeletons in the closet, or better said, relics in the ground, it's hard to fathom that Zhengzhou has any room for the future. But they seem to be pulling it off. The city's dot on the map is becoming more impressive by the year. It's just non-stop.
Independent source to the real China. Blue Ocean Network. BON.
Blue Ocean Network.
Blue Ocean Network.
Giving you everything you need to know about China.
Everything and anything about China.
We've got your top shows such as Take Me to China, China Price Watch, Media Watch, China Take, China Log, Bizwire, and much, much more.
Keeping you up to speed halfway across the world.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Blue Ocean Network.
Blue Ocean Network.
Blue Ocean Network.
You're gonna love it.
Zhengzhou has no shortage of lodgings, and even the upscale ones shouldn't break the bank.
There are a handful of 5-star hotels in Zhengzhou, as well as numerous 4- and 3-star hotels. Much depends on which part of town you want to use as your base. Tonight, I'm staying in the East End at the Jianguo Hotel. This 5-star is a comfortable place to relax between sightseeing excursions.
All Chinese cities have their specialties. Zhengzhou lays claim to noodles and fish. But before I get into that, I'm going to try their breakfast of champions, hula tang.
At Fangzhong Shandian, or Square Middle Mountain Restaurant, Hui Chinese, a Muslim minority, serve up a blistering bowl of this lamb-based gravy soup. It is sure to warm your belly for the rest of the day.
Whew. It's nice. It's got a great spice to it. Inside we've got moar, which is a mushroom, tofu. It's definitely as good as a cup of coffee for breakfast. It's good.
Get here early in the morning to beat the crowds and enjoy the bustle of the street-side kitchen. For dinner, head to the local Hunanese restaurant Awu Delicious. There are 6 throughout the city. They are known for one dish in particular, Huanghe Liyu Bei Mian, a dish that comes in 2 parts. The first being the ultra-thin noodles. The chefs take pleasure in demonstrating their special properties with fire and water. The second part is the fish, Yellow River carp. Like the noodles, it's fried.
Yellow River fish and bay mian,
背面
the thin noodle.
这是黄河鲤鱼，
How do you eat this? 你怎么吃？
拿着筷子，
筷子。You can show me.
然后这不是切的一刀一刀的，从这把它夹掉，来，
Okay, so grab this piece.
这样就可以吃了，这样。
可以吃。Bone out. That is awesome. It's got a sweet and sour, floured freshwater fish taste to it. Really excellent. The sweet and the sour is exactly how you'd want it to be. That's fantastic. How do you eat it with the bay mian?
背面也可以加一点面来，加一点面，蘸着这个汁。
And you put it in the sauce.
哎，对。
Wow, that is a thin noodle. The bay mian noodle is thinner than the thinnest angel hair pasta I've ever had. It's really delicious and melts in your mouth.
Awu Delicious is also known for the Zhengzhou specialty hui mian, noodles in a lamb broth, as well as a host of other Henan and general Chinese favorites.
Zhengzhou cannot really be understood without exploring its relationship with the Yellow River. And the Yellow River scenic area, about 30 kilometers north of downtown, provides much to see and do.
Horseback riding is one popular activity. Scaling right beneath the Yellow Emperor's nose is another. His neighbor to the left is Yan Di, or the Red Emperor, the Yellow Emperor's supposed predecessor. The two godfathers of the Middle Kingdom overlook the river's broad, unwieldy channels. Henan section of the Yellow River, Henan literally meaning south of the river, has a history of being difficult, if not downright dangerous. Most days it provided fish and the water for agriculture, but it was also capable of flooding and destroying anything in its shifting path. Hundreds of floods have been recorded over the centuries. This section alone has caused 3 huge disasters in the past 150 years. In the overarching span of time, though, the river has proven a unifying thread for Chinese civilization. Perhaps the best way to experience the powerful river is by boarding a hovercraft. They take visitors a short jaunt upriver. A quick photo op on the lowest bank, another spin on a horse, and you're off again. The Song Mountains rise to the south of Zhengzhou City. No surprise that the mountains themselves are geographically historic and religious. In Taoism, the Song Mountains are considered representative of one of the 5 elements, earth. However, you don't necessarily have to be on a pilgrimage to appreciate these peaks, cliffs, and valleys. Any good Taoist knows that nature is enough. This day, I'm climbing Taisher Shan, one of the highest sections of the Song Mountain range.
Just so you know, hikes in China are different from those, say, somebody from Europe or America are used to. Westerners usually like to get off the beaten track, or at least find one that's dirt. Whereas in China, most climbs are stone pathways that lead you to some sacred peak. The stone pathways make it easier, but you're definitely not off the beaten track. Here I am at the top. It's a heck of a Stairmaster. It's definitely worth the experience.
If you don't feel you have the legs for Taisher Mountain, have a go at Shaosher Mountain. There, you can take a gondola. It won't take you to the top of Shaosher, but will give you a much appreciated boost to the middle.
You may not recognize the Shaoshi Mountains, but you may recognize a temple that goes by the same first syllable, Shao, as in the Shaolin Temple. The mountains act as a natural defense for this temple that's not only famous for its Zen Buddhism, but also for its Kung Fu. In ancient times, the two came hand in hand.
The temple grounds reach back to the Northern Wei dynasty, the same era as the Grotto Temple seen near Guanyin. Back then, an emperor offered the grounds to an eminent Buddhist monk from India. Later on, another Indian monk arrived, Bodhidharma, known as Damwa in Chinese. Damwa was a follower of Chan Buddhism, more commonly known in English as Zen Buddhism. The local monks rejected his arrival, and so Damwa found refuge in this nearby cave to meditate. Zen patient to the hilt, he meditated for 9 years inside, only taking breaks to exercise to keep his body strong.
People went from skeptical to concerned, and finally to convinced. The Shaolin Temple became a place of Zen.
The idea to exercise between bouts of meditation also caught on. His disciples exercised by imitating the natural movements of animals. These routines formed into Shaolin boxing or Chinese martial arts, commonly known in English as Kung Fu. The techniques did not serve the purpose of fighting, but acted as a physical match to Zen. Just as monks sought superhuman wisdom through meditation, they also sought superhuman strength through the practice of Kung Fu. These finger holes in a temple tree, and these stomping marks in the temple stones, attest to their extraordinary power. Over the years, the temple grew in prestige and various officials and even emperors paid their respects here. The monks were prized for their wisdom and Kung Fu skills. With that said, the temple underwent hard times, the most destructive of which occurring in 1928, when many of the structures, including the library filled with thousands of historic and sacred Buddhist texts, burned to rubble. Many of the structures today are replicas. The pagoda forest is one area that survived intact. These pagodas are tombs that hold the remains of various Shaolin monks and Zen masters. The oldest pagodas reach back to more than 1,200 years ago. The most recent pagoda belongs to Shi Xingzheng and shows the great world innovations he had witnessed during his lifetime. The Thousand Buddha Hall is also original. Temple interiors are typically unlit, so peel your eyes to examine magnificent frescoes from the late 16th century Ming Dynasty. The artist is unknown, but whoever it was painted the huge composition into 3 rich layers. Each layer shows various arhats, or Buddhists who have attained nirvana, casually conversing, perhaps waxing philosophical about the finer points of achieving enlightenment. Many travelers don't just come to see Shaolin. Rather, they seek to learn Kung Fu. No doubt, the warrior monks, with their discipline and skills, are inspiring. Many nearby private schools provide Kung Fu instruction, but I was lucky enough to get my own master straight off the temple grounds.
好，我们开始。怎么开始？ Uh-oh. Beijing, Shanghai, and Xi'an. These are some of the most famous cities in China. But one really can't say that they've been to the Middle Kingdom without coming to Zhengzhou. I hope you've enjoyed this historical tour. I know I have. 开始。